Major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided in court today, and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katursky.
Christian Combs, Sean Diddy Combs' eldest son, is reportedly cooperating with federal prosecutors in New York just days before his father's high-profile trial begins. Diddy faces serious trafficking and racketeering charges that have shocked the entertainment industry.
Back up a little bit, please.
How can you support your father? How do you support him moving forward?
Two law enforcement sources confirmed that sealed court documents include a confidential memo outlining expected testimony from a family member, specifically 27-year-old rapper King Combs. Prosecutors believe Christian has direct knowledge about private jets, exclusive guest lists, and secret money transfers connected to Diddy's notorious parties in the Hamptons and Miami between 2015 to 2022. These events are central to the alleged separation described in last year's indictment. Former Assistant U.S. Attorney Mark Diaz noted that family testimony is extremely rare and powerful in conspiracy cases. Diddy recently rejected a plea deal capping his sentence at 12 years.
Isn't that, to my mind, that's one of the bigger hurdles in selecting a jury this coming week, is that there is, at least anecdotally, when I talk to people, they have that opinion, strongly held opinion, that they've kind of conflated Epstein, and you mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell and all of these things, into Diddy. There's this idea that somehow this is Epstein redux or something. Do you get that?
I know that's true.
Investigators who've examined the evidence say at least 14 devices seized during March raids on Diddy's LA and Miami mansions contain father-son communications that prosecutors want verified through testimony. If convicted on all counts, Diddy faces over 20 years imprisonment. Christian, who hasn't been charged, may be cooperating to protect himself from legal consequences. Encrypted messages allegedly show Christian organizing luxury charter flights for high-profile guests attending private all-white parties in the Hamptons and yacht gatherings in Biscayne Bay. Prosecutors claim these flights, funded through Shell, companies linked to Bad Boy Entertainment, prove Diddy operated a coordinated scheme moving people across state lines for illegal purposes. Diddy's defense team argues these were legitimate industry events with no improper intent.
Sean Diddy Combs back behind bars, a magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, "My concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors." Diddy's lawyers had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York, ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case. They urged the judge to remand him. She did, and when the judge did, Diddy, who was sitting at the defense table with his attorneys, did not show any signs of emotion. He took a sip of water before he was led out of the courtroom by the U.S. Marshals. Now, his lawyers have vowed to fight this. They are going to be back in court on Wednesday before the judge who will oversee this trial and try to get Diddy to be released.
Sources confirm Christian Combs met with prosecutors twice in early April, accompanied by his own legal team. This timing coincides with complaints from Diddy's inner circle about being kept uninformed. Prosecutors are also investigating celebrity appearances, endorsement payments, and financial arrangements throughout Diddy's business empire. While no other family members are officially cooperating, investigators have reportedly approached both Justin Combs and Quincy Brown requesting voluntary interviews. The hip-hop community's reaction is mixed. Some sympathize with Christian's difficult position, while others believe he's right to speak up. Diddy's legendary summer parties attracted A-list celebrities from music, acting, sports, and tech industries, but prosecutors now claim these gatherings served as recruitment venues for the alleged trafficking operation. Allegations Diddy's team dismisses as fabricated.
I think it's a huge opportunity for the defense, because what happens is if people go into a trial believing the firepower on the prosecution is so strong. I mean, let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, it's a 95 that it's so strong, but it goes down to an 88. That helps the defense because everybody goes in thinking, wow, they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and all of a sudden, none of it's there.
Earlier this year, Christian publicly focused on music and fashion rather than business dealings. The March raids reportedly shocked him, especially when footage emerged of armed agents swarming Diddy's LA mansion where Christian often recorded music. The rejected plea deal would have required Diddy to admit to 1 racketeering count and 1 sex trafficking-related charge, surrender all weapons seized during raids, and forfeit $20 million. His attorneys deemed these terms unacceptable as they portrayed Diddy as a criminal mastermind. Monday's jury selection is expected to draw intense media attention, with courtroom seats assigned by lottery. Prosecutors plan to present evidence of what they describe as a complex criminal operation disguised within Diddy's legitimate spirits business and entertainment empire, while the defense argues the case mischaracterizes consensual adult relationships and relies on witnesses motivated by potential civil lawsuit payouts.
Last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
Good sources, virtually. In fact, you surprise me sometimes with some of the stuff you seem to know or the information that you get. Do you still think that, because there is this public perception, that there are still in this case?
No.
Do you still think that there are minors involved in this case?
I'm certain no.
Okay.
And again, when you say this case, we're talking the criminal case.
The criminal case.
In the
correct.
criminal,
I know that.
In the criminal case, no.
If Christian testifies, it could dramatically alter the trial's trajectory. Prosecutors have indicated they might call him early, even before other confidential witnesses. Some liquor distributors have paused orders for De Leon tequila pending trial developments, while streaming numbers for Bad Boy's catalog have surged as fans revisit the music. Activists note the emotional significance of a son potentially testifying in such a high-profile case involving serious allegations. Christian hasn't yet filed an official witness affidavit, and Diddy's lawyers retain the right to block questions. That might incriminate Christian. A major status hearing is scheduled for Monday morning just before jury selection begins.
We have some breaking news. A jury will not be picked today in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Court started this morning with 45 potential jurors. The lawyers had hoped to cut that down to the final 12 plus 6 alternates, but now that'll have to wait until Monday.
Literally just leaving the federal courthouse. Lots happened today. The big thing is there is still no jury. They're so concerned about jurors backing out over the weekend once they find out that they're actually on the jury, that they're going to bring 43 of them back on Monday morning. They're going to strike them and then go right into opening statements. Part of that is because they received an email.
Diddy remains detained at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center after being denied bail in March, when Judge Subramanian cited new allegations and firearms discovered during raids. His legal team has submitted a fresh bail request citing family, health concerns, but prosecutors oppose release, arguing Diddy's global connections and substantial resources make him a flight risk.
How can you support your father? How do you support him moving forward?
Newly unsealed documents reveal Diddy allegedly moved $74 million through 17 shell companies between 2016 to 2023. Prosecutors claim these transactions funded the infrastructure for the alleged trafficking operation, including private flights, Hampton rentals, and security services. Financial records show identical withdrawals made shortly before certain invitation-only events labeled high risk in court documents. 2 invoices reportedly bear Christian Combs' signature as the internal approver for yacht rentals and catering costs, potentially strengthening his connection to the case. Diddy's attorney Aaron Sussman dismisses these records as normal business expenses. Federal agents recently served a warrant at J.P. Morgan Chase, investigating a $900,000 transfer from De Leon Tequila to a dormant media company owned by Diddy's advisor. This money allegedly funded a private jet that transported 8 unidentified passengers from New Jersey to the Bahamas for a White Sands weekend, mentioned in the indictment. Various business partners have rushed to distance themselves from potential liability.
No conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, my concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors. Diddy's lawyers had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York, ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case. They urged the judge to remand him. She did, and when the judge did, Diddy, who was sitting at the defense table with his attorneys, did not show any signs of emotion. He took a sip of water before he was led out of the courtroom by the U.S. Marshals. Now, his lawyers have vowed to fight this. They are going to be back in court on Wednesday before the judge who will oversee this trial and try to get Diddy to be released.
Financial records also show $6.4 million in charitable donations, including $450,000 to Howard University and $300,000 to a Los Angeles youth arts organization. However, prosecutors allege these contributions were followed by matching withdrawals from Diddy's personal accounts, suggesting potential financial manipulation. Former IRS investigator John Mendes describes this as circular financing that deflects banking scrutiny. 3 former aviation employees are expected to testify, including a mechanic who claims flight logs were deliberately cleared of passenger names before audits, supposedly for VIP privacy. Judge Subramanian scheduled unusual weekend arguments, highlighting the case's compressed timeline. The financial disclosures have intensified online debate between those supporting Christian's cooperation and others viewing the prosecution as targeting Black-owned businesses. Prominent artists like Mary J. Blige and Usher have avoided commenting on potential involvement.
He's rejecting the government's offer to plead guilty and spare himself the possibility of a prolonged term in prison. When asked if he turned down the offer, Combs answered, "Yes, I do, Your Honor," as he stood in a baggy beige jail uniform. Terms were not disclosed, but prosecutors did say a plea could result in a shorter sentence for Combs than if he's convicted. The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to sexually exploit both women and men for decades. Combs has pleaded not guilty to racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution charges that accused him of coercing alleged victims into prolonged, drug-fueled sexual activity that he called freak-offs and threatening them into silence. At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes, as his lawyers argue the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way.
Major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided in court today, and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin.
Cultural commentator Michael Harriot noted deep-rooted suspicion of federal prosecutions within Black communities, comparing public skepticism to historical distrust stemming from injustices like the Tuskegee experiment. The case has attracted political attention, with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley calling on the Justice Department to release data on how celebrity trafficking cases are charged, expressing concern that high-profile prosecutions might distract from broader justice reform. Combs Enterprises is experiencing significant disruption, with reports of an emergency board meeting where COO TK Brooks discussed selling minority shares in the Sean John Fashion Archive and pausing a major Miami hospitality project. Some employees have received furlough warnings if the legal proceedings extend. Jury selection is underway, with potential jurors completing a 24-page questionnaire about their familiarity with Diddy's music, views on conspiracy charges, and knowledge of any potential witnesses.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs back behind bars, a magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, my concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors. Diddy's lawyers had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York, ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case. They urged the judge to remand him. She did. And when the judge did, Diddy, who was sitting at the defense table with his attorneys, did not show any signs of emotion. He took a sip of water before he was led out of the courtroom by the U.S. Marshals. Now, his lawyers have vowed to fight this. They are going to be back in court on Wednesday before the judge who will oversee this trial and try to get Diddy to be released.
Digital forensic analyst Omar Velasquez will present evidence including encrypted communications, allegedly showing prearranged guest pairings and location data, placing Diddy's security team, certain guests, and staff at off-site apartments after official parties concluded. The financial fallout continues as Sotheby's has postponed the auction of Diddy's art collection that was scheduled for July, citing uncertainty regarding clear title while federal forfeiture remains possible. Warner Music Group executives convened an emergency risk committee to assess whether streaming royalties flowing through Combs-controlled publishing companies might be frozen under asset seizure provisions. At a separate press event, National Urban League President Mark Morial urged distinguishing between legal proceedings and moral judgment, but acknowledged the case could overshadow Diddy's philanthropic contributions. Howard University has not indicated whether it would return donations if they were proven to be connected to illegal activities.
Happens.
Yeah, I think if you get a list of potential jurors, which depending on the court can be several weeks before the trial, and it's a high stakes trial, you start the research then. And then there is the list of the actual jury pool, at which point you get really intense research. And now, whereas here, that the jury selection has stretched out over a period of days, I would think that they're looking at every potential issue.
Late Friday, prosecutors filed notice of their intent to introduce prior bad act evidence under Federal Rule 404B, potentially including a 2013 Miami incident where bodyguards allegedly confiscated guests' phones and deleted photos. Diddy's legal team immediately objected, characterizing this as an attempt to prejudice the jury with unrelated past events. The courthouse is implementing enhanced security measures with additional checkpoints and a designated media overflow room, anticipating crowds comparable to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Diddy's attorneys have filed a motion to protect private family communications, while prosecutors seek expedited disclosure of defense expert reports. A final pretrial conference is scheduled for Monday morning to resolve outstanding issues and finalize the witness schedule. Christian Combs is expected to testify during the trial's first week, potentially confirming flight records, payment receipts, and encrypted messages that would advance the prosecution's timeline. The unsealed financial ledgers provide insight into how prosecutors believe Diddy's legitimate music business activities allegedly intertwined with illegal operations, setting the stage for a landmark case examining celebrity accountability, family loyalty, and complex financial arrangements.